There are few things in the world as ubiquitous and inextricably linked to the human condition as music. It may at once be solace in the face of difficulty or a source of inspiration, with a thousand qualities in between. Yet music, of course, is not a universal concept. In fact, the structure or theory underlying Western genres, such as classical music and rock and roll, could not be more different despite decades of effort to formalize the latter. Good sometime of day to you, and welcome back to Of Minds and Men. Today, I will be trying something slightly different and be giving a brief comparative survey of the most commonly used systems of musical theory in the present day, the Perso-Arabic, Western, and Indian systems. For better or worse, though there exist numerous genres outside these categories, they either borrow from one of these systems or are entirely oral, which is the minority in our age of the music industry. Though, before we begin, I really ought to introduce a few critical terms which are common throughout all music theory. Firstly, we have melody, or the succession of notes in a song, basically the musical part. Then there's rhythm, or the pulse of a piece's timing, as in the pulse beat out by a drum. Harmony, or the union of simultaneous notes as done by a chorus, and also modality or the structure of the notes played in question, like a scale. There are, of course, many terms besides these, but to understand the base of a musical tradition, these are enough. To begin with, let us consider a slightly more straightforward Perso-Arabic system, so called by me because it's shared between Iran, the Arabic world, and the Middle East in general. It is based primarily on the system of maqam or dastka, Arabic and Persian respectively, a fixed series of modes to which a composition is set, either staying in one maqam or switching between others. To those familiar with Western notation, these are essentially shortened scales which omit certain notes to fit specific moods. Because of the simpler modal structure, the tradition is quite well balanced, allowing for sophisticated melodic, rhythmic, and harmonic compositions, like the frenzied tambourines you might associate with Arabic music, or pieces set to verse, especially poetry. Western musical theory, in contrast, bears similar roots from the Middle Eastern system, both developing from Greek influence, but the Western system developed primarily from liturgical music, specifically the forms of Hebrew and Greek chanting used in Christianity. From there, modality developed into the familiar system of major and minor scales divided into octaves of 8 notes. This unique history has given it a focus on melody and especially harmony, with simpler rhythms, in contrast. This facilitates both small scale chamber performances alongside the enormous orchestras or choirs so frequently associated with the genre. In fact, I would say that the larger size of choirs led to the development of the orchestral tradition to the detriment of improvisation, which is near absent in Western classical. Indian musical theory, finally, could be viewed as the polar opposite to the Western model, heavily focused on melody and rhythm, while harmony is almost non existent. Unlike the old other two systems, where a clear lineage can be traced from a fixed ancient custom, the oldest recorded form of Indian music is the chanting of the Vedas, described in my previous video actually, so feel free to see that if you're interested. And the Vedas, of course, are certainly quite different from modern Hindustani and Carnatic classical music, the two primary forms of Indian classical. To that effect, there may well have been an ancient musical tradition in India predating the Vedas, played by ancient instruments such as the veena or the wooden flute, which was refined into the form of ragas, or unique modes with certain emotional associations. Describing the differences between Hindustani and Carnatic music is beyond the scope of this video, but in sum, an Indian classical composition is defined by the raga alongside a fixed tala or rhythm. The composition focuses chiefly on improvisation. In fact, the Hindustani tradition is mostly improvisation alongside the tone or general mood, and often done by a lone singer or player with rhythmic accompaniment, with almost no instances of harmonic music outside duets. Well, unsatisfying though these descriptions are, they nonetheless form basis of the world's most three prevalent theoretical systems. Practically all other genres, be it Ottoman or these days traditional Chinese music, borrow liberally from one of them in a tradition that extends to the popular music of today. Indeed, despite the lofty name, the classical music of the world is not so different from the endless songs of today at their base. So, understanding the form of classical music can only enrich one's love of music as a whole. Thank you for listening to Of Minds and Men. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. For next time, I'm not sure quite what I'll do yet, but expect something continental, probably.